On October 2nd, 2006, Formula One made a big announcement. South Korea would join the F1 calendar with a brand new race in 2010. The idea was ambitious: to build a purpose-built track in Yeongam, about 400 kilometers south of Seoul, and use it as a catalyst to develop the region. Not just a track, but an entire city surrounding it, with cafes, hotels, restaurants, even waterfront areas with yachts overlooking the circuit. On paper, it was a bold step into a new market, but in reality, it was a project doomed from the start. The Korean International Circuit was designed by Hermann Tilke, who had already created circuits in places like Shanghai, Bahrain, and Malaysia. This one would be 5.62 kilometers long, with 18 corners and 3 lengthy straights, one of them stretching nearly 1.2 kilometers. It was a technical blend of high speed, medium speed, and tight, low speed corners. It looked strange from above, but from a driver's perspective, it actually offered a decent rhythm and flow. As construction got underway, the hype began to build. The Korean Grand Prix was marketed as the beginning of something massive for the region, a motorsport hub that would attract international attention. But as the first race drew closer, problems started to emerge. By late 2009, race organizers were promising everything was on schedule, with construction supposedly wrapping up around July of 2010. But behind the scenes, concerns were growing. The city around the track was nowhere close to finish. Basic infrastructure like roads and accommodations were still missing. The organizers' biggest concern wasn't the race itself, it was finding enough beds for the teams, the staff, and the fans. There was even brief talk of turning it into a night race, but that was quickly dismissed. It was clear the focus needed to be on simply getting the track completed. By October 2010, with just days to go, the circuit was still under inspection. On October 11th, only 12 days before the scheduled race, the FIA gave it the green light. But this required waiving the usual 90-day rule for approving new venues. The Korean Grand Prix was officially happening, but it was already on shaky grounds. Construction delays, mainly due to rain and poor soil quality, had made everything more difficult. There were also major concerns with the track layout itself. The pit entry, for example, was placed right on the racing line, something that baffled drivers and teams. Despite the rocky buildup, the first Korean Grand Prix took place in October 2010 in torrential rain. The weather was miserable, but the racing was dramatic. Fernando Alonso won, Sebastian Vettel retired with engine trouble, Mark Webber crashed out, damaging his title hopes, and around 135,000 people attended over the weekend, though there were reports that many students were given free tickets just to fill the grandstands. What stood out the most wasn't the race itself, it was the setting. The circuit sat in the middle of what looked like an abandoned construction zone. The city that was supposed to rise around the track, it was nothing more than an empty field. There was a strange disconnect between the grandeur of Formula One and the incomplete surroundings, and that feeling never really went away. By 2011, cracks began to show. The Korean organizers started to express regret over the contract they had signed with Formula One. They said the costs were too high and asked to renegotiate. Bernie Ecclestone, F1 CEO, who was known to never back down, said no. He reminded them that they had agreed to terms and that failure to pay would mean the race would be dropped. Still, a new deal was eventually reached in 2012 that cut $20 million in costs, but even with those savings, the race still ran at a loss, about $26 million alone that year. It became clear to race organizers that this event wasn't financially viable. Beyond money, the biggest issue was the track's location. The track was isolated, far from major cities and international airports. It wasn't easy to get to, and without the draw of a developed surrounding area, it failed to attract the international crowd that other races enjoyed. Ticket sales dropped, sponsors lost interest, and the original vision of a motorsports city by the sea faded completely. Today, the Korean International Circuit still hosts domestic racing events and occasional international series. It's often described as a hybrid of Tilke's other designs, Shanghai meets Sepang, but it's hard to judge its true potential. With only 4 F1 races ever held there, the track became more famous for what didn't happen than what did. In the end, the Korean Grand Prix was a story of ambition without execution. It had the potential to be something great, but poor planning, bad timing, and unrealistic expectations doomed the project. It's a reminder that a racetrack is more than asphalt. It needs infrastructure, support, and an audience. The dream was to build a thriving motorsports hub. What we got was a muddy, half-finished shell of an idea that never got off the ground.